Okay, today I thought I would share a little bit more about my personal story, um, my realization, and what led up to it. I always hesitate. Well, I don't kind of like sharing these personal things because I never want to sound arrogant or, oh, I don't know. But anyway, what I know is so many other people have helped me by sharing their stories. So who knows? Maybe I'll do the same. I'll help somebody. um, anyway, it's a fun story. I mean, it's what a beautiful realization it was. And I think it's just, I love to hear other people's stories. So here's mine. The first thing I want to start off with is a year prior to my awakening, my realization, it was hell. So this part of the story is to say, if you're experiencing hell, you may be on the verge of an awakening. But that entire year prior to realization, it was like everything was going wrong. You know, I was working on myself. You know, I thought I knew everything. I had all my tools, my self-development tools. And things were just getting worse and worse. It was like dark night of the mind for an entire year. Everything was coming up. And as hard as I tried to process it, nothing was clearing. My health issues were getting to a ridiculous peak so that I couldn't do anything. And every time I tried to do something like spiritual business or teach classes, nothing would work. And I would just get sicker and sicker. And that entire year, I had that gut sense that something was coming. So I stopped everything because all I could do was just be in suffering. And so if you feel you're in that zone, great. Be prepared, something's coming. And so near the end of that year, I started getting the feeling, I feel like I need a teacher. Something's coming and I need a teacher. And I don't know how it is, but I stumbled across Jan Essman on Buddha at the Gas Pump. And I immediately knew there was something that he could do for me. And what he could do for me is he is such an enlightened being. Excuse me, my stomach's growling. And the amount of Shakti that he can transmit to people in person, I don't know, but he has a thing called Shaktipat in absentia, which he can send a fully energized mala bead through the mail to you. And that's what I got. And then you do 10 days of meditation. That was all I needed to catapult me into realization. It was the very last day of the 10-day meditation recommendation. And whew, it sent me over the edge. Anyway, so if you feel like you're going through this process of dark night of the mind and everything's going wrong and you can't find your path and nothing's working, maybe a little Shaktipat. So Jan Essman at Love Bliss EU. Anyway, okay, so what was my realization like? Well, it was in meditation and my memory, it's funny, I'm losing my memory of it. I can hardly remember things from yesterday. So it's so strange, but this is what happens when you lose your memory, because memory is part of the ego mind, right? So it's hard to recall it, but let me get there. So I remember being immediately like shifting into the visual that I got was this universal source matrix of like neurons, like how our nerves are. You know, you've seen pictures. And I immediately was drawn into to two little neurons, which I knew immediately that's me. But I wasn't the two neurons, the two manifested parts. I was the space in between. And I wasn't just that space in between. In that space, I was the entire space that ever existed everywhere. It was shocking. It was shocking and so beautiful. And yet, I recognize that space in between the two neurons, I don't know if I'm using the right terms, had a signature, an energetic signature that I could call me. I don't know how to explain that. And what I realized, obviously, I knew immediately, oh, that's me. Now the feeling's coming back. It's as if you were living your entire life where there were no mirrors. And your whole life, people were describing to you what you looked like and who you were, and even drawing little pictures for you and saying, that's you. And you're like, oh, yes, that's me. And then, 50 years into your life, remember, no mirrors, you suddenly stumble upon a mirror and you see yourself. That's what it felt like. It was unbelievable. Anyway, this recognition of self, that's who I am. You can never go back to it. My identification, and by the way, all this is happening, and I was consciously aware that mind was over here somewhere. And I had several other repeating awakenings for the next couple of days. That it was the same thing, experiencing myself as this space while mind was over here. So we just kept reiterating or adding to the realization that this is not about the mind or the personality ego. Okay. Anyway, what else? Yeah, it was like coming home. I mean, there's no other words to explain it. It pulled the Band-Aid off. And I knew immediately, never going back to believing I am this mind, ego personality. But anyway, also what happened in that vision, realization, whatever you want to call it, now, this may sound really strange, but it was almost like a near-death experience, because since I was a child, all I've ever thought of, like this constant repetitive feeling inside of me, is I just want to go home. I just want to go home, and constantly thinking, get me out of here, get me out of here. And when you don't know better, you consider suicide. And my first attempt was at 12 years old. So my whole life, even during the spiritual journey, I kept saying, just kill this personality, kill this personality, not really knowing that killing the personality actually kills the body too. So I was like having this, what was presented to me was an opportunity. I know this is going to sound really strange. That, they were saying, you want to kill this personality. And I knew immediately that it meant killing the body, that it wasn't. And I immediately in my solar plexus could feel a tug of attachment. It wasn't the fear of death, not at all. But it was this attachment to the body and all the experiences that I still had left to do. And so obviously there was this, no, of course not. But at the same moment, all this is happening simultaneously. And at the same moment, my soul, or this non-physical aspect of myself, during this question, I could see, feel, and experience the utter joy. I have never experienced joy like this before or after this event. It was joy. It was so unbelievable, the joy that my unmanifested self was experiencing, being me in this body, and all the experiences that it immediately at that moment ceased all desire of me to commit suicide. So just another point I want to bring in here, if that crosses your mind, just maybe remember, you have no idea how much joy your soul or your unmanifested self is getting from this experience. So anyway, I got the message and said no, but it was a near death, not like a normal near death, but anyway, it was really something. So that ended that. And the next morning when I woke up, here's all these things that I realized. It was like coming bam, 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 one after the other. I remember getting up out of bed, and I had lost all sense of this personality. There was no residue of Karen, my real name, or Kat. I couldn't find a Karen or Kat anywhere. I was gone. It was like blown out. This is the honeymoon stage, backing up a little bit. So these experiences, they last with people for a couple of days to a couple of months. And all of this experience lasted for me maybe 6 to 8 weeks, almost 2 months. It was just crazy. Anyway, so I couldn't find me. I was gone, this I identity gone. And at that moment, standing up, I just remember at the same time, simultaneous thoughts. My seeking was done. Every ounce of seeking of the spiritual journey was gone in me. It was completely emptied out. And at the same time, I realized, holy shit, the spiritual journey just began. That the hard work, I could see in an instant the immense work I had to go through from that point on to clear all the attachments. And I realized that all the previous work that I did or thought I was doing didn't make an ounce of difference, because I wasn't doing it from this space of pure consciousness. I mean, nobody told me. So that's something to really hear. We have all these beautiful tools out there, like the Gene Keys and Soul Contract and the Enneagram. And I'm getting so dizzy. Ooh, I don't know what just happened. None of the work is truly going to transform anything unless you're working on your shadows from that space of silence, from pure consciousness, that going within and turning around and bringing your shadows in there. So I guess that's the message I want to say there. What else? So the next couple of weeks were absolutely crazy, at like the greatest time of my life. And remember, I guess you wouldn't know this, but I've had a full Kundalini awakening. So full Kundalini awakening with realization. My God, I spent about 6 weeks in bliss, going in and out of cosmic or God consciousness into unity consciousness and back. I've never felt more alive in my whole life. And I knew that aliveness was the way we're supposed to feel. It's unbelievable, the amount of energy. It felt like every cell in my body was bubbling with carbonated water. It was unbelievable. I didn't need to sleep, didn't need to eat. I had to run to tire myself out. And when the moments that I would slide into that unity consciousness, which happened quite often, almost daily, and then it would get less, and then a couple times during the day. But when I would slip into it, and you immediately feel totally in love with everything, the calendar, the bookcase, the tree, everything. The energy connected with that, sorry, I have somebody coming to the door, was so intense that it would buckle my knees. I'm going to have to put this on pause. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I've answered the door, where was I? So this, slipping into unity consciousness, as intensely as it was at that time, was overwhelming to the body. My knees would literally buckle. It would just be too ecstatic. And I can see now that there is it almost has to be a progressive step-by-step development or opening into these levels of consciousness, because your body cannot handle it. Anyway, I was seeing this little golden yellowish glow around everything. And I was completely awake even when I was asleep. I'd get up and I go, was I just sleeping? I mean, it's been 8 hours. It was so weird to be conscious all the time. What else did I realize? All these, so many things came in. It was just bizarre. My sense of self was, prior to realization, you can kind of say, yeah, here's my sense of self, right? It's here, somewhere in here. Now, for me, my sense of self, or at that time, was totally obliterated, shattered. And still to this day, I don't have a sense of me in this body. I'm just kind of everywhere. But during that time, it was highly exaggerated. I could actually, what it was, is you could feel your sense of self like just hovering kind of above your head, but more like spread out everywhere. Very strange. So it kind of lost this sense of I. It's coming back though. I mean, it is back. And what else? And then I'd be driving down the road and it'd be like, oh, I'm not real. Slipped into another real light. I'm I'm not even here. It was the strangest feel. It was hilarious because all at once I realized this is truly an illusion. This me that I thought I was isn't even really here. I'm just an illusion. Like, I thought at the time I was a projection. It was so funny. So, what I felt from realizing I am truly an illusion, I'm not real, none of this is really real, is I don't take stuff too seriously or personal. I know that's hard to say if you're on the other side of realization, because everything seems so serious and personal, but I can promise you it's not. So suffering is good, suffering is grace, as Richard Rudd would say. Suffering will lead you to an awakening, but don't take it too seriously or personally. Easier said than done, I know. Okay, I think that might be all. At the time I thought we are a projection, but since then I've had, just realization after realization that kind of opens you up to higher truth or more truth of the truth. And I realized that we're not even a projection, that all of this happening is happening in the one mind. The one mind is seeing, perceiving, hearing. It's all happening inside. I don't know how to explain it. I'll leave that to the masters, but we're not even a projection. All of this happening is happening within consciousness. Anyway. So what else? I'm sure I've made this video way too long. So that's what I realized in realization. The biggest point was the spiritual journey does not truly begin until after realization. And maybe, so if you haven't realized yet, and you're working with tools such as the Enneagram or Gene Keys or Soul Contract or anything that's helping you look at your shadows, make sure that you witness these or deal with the shadow aspects or whatever you want to call them from within consciousness, pure consciousness. Because I think sometimes, like what I did, you think you're looking at it, you become aware of it, but you're kind of mentally aware of it. And that's not doing anything. You have to go within and turn around and let the consciousness that is you envelop it, hold it, and then dissolve it, because nothing can survive in consciousness. Okay. Well, that's my story. And I'm sorry if it was too long, but just sharing as it comes. So more later.